It is a pleasure on VLGA Connect to welcome back into the newsroom the CEO of the VLGA, Kathryn Arndt, who's had a very well-deserved Easter hiatus. We like that word, don't we? Hi,
It's
Kathryn.
a great word. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. As you know, I suffered an injury a couple of weeks ago, dropped my laptop on my toe and suffered a fracture, but I'm hobbling on and able to put a shoe back on it. So that's excellent.
I'm very pleased to hear that. Now, did it have anything to do with what you were looking at on the laptop at the time, or was the laptop itself causing you grief?
Look, I think I have to rearrange my home office working environment. Clearly, there wasn't enough space and it just fell straight down onto my foot. And perhaps I shouldn't be trying to look at a laptop quite so late at night. So there were a few lessons in it for me. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. As long as you weren't listening to the local government news Roundup podcast or something that, shocked you and made you drop your laptop at the time.
No, I actually like to listen to that over my morning coffee. I listen to your dulcet tones, Chris, and catch up on the news. It's certainly keeping me up to date, not only with what's happening locally, but also nationally and a little bit of international news. So hopefully some of our viewers have caught up with that as well.
Indeed. Well, it's getting a great response. So thank you for your ongoing support. A couple of things that I wanted to get your thoughts on that we've touched on briefly on the Roundup, in fact. So the state government has announced a new building review expert panel, which is looking into the building system and going to make a series of recommendations over a number of stages, as I understand it. We've had a few of these things happening around the sector, which may or may not lead to some significant sort of change in outcomes.
Yeah, this is a really interesting task force that's come out of the cladding task force. Some of our viewers might remember that this was up and running I think a few years ago. This building task force is being chaired by the Commissioner for Better Regulation, Anna Cronin. I actually note a change in name. I think Anna's position used to be the Commissioner for Red Tape, but right. They've rethought that, and we've invited Anna onto our program, and hopefully we'll be able to have her on VLGA Connect shortly to talk about a review she did into red tape regarding the planning system a couple of years ago, and also now this building task force, which has some pretty high caliber people on the governance structure of that.
It certainly does. There's an international expertise has been brought together on the panel too. I'm assuming all these people are going to be present here, but potentially they're using the technology to bring this broader expertise together on the issue.
Yeah, look, perhaps they are, and I'd be really interested to hear from Anna on that. As you say, we have Dame Judith Hackett, who is on the committee, and she's chair of the UK's independent review of building regulations and fire safety. So there are some big players, international players on this committee, but as we know, when we think about the cladding issue itself, it is something that has affected other countries. And I'm not surprised that we're bringing in that level of expertise to help us solve some of our more local issues. And this will, of course, have some implications for the local government sector.
Indeed. And I know, as a matter of course, you at the VLGA will be keeping a watching brief on that, and where possible, having input and having your say on such matters.
Absolutely. We've certainly been invited to participate into reviews that Anna's previously undertaken in her role. And what we might do, Chris, is include a link to the scope of this particular task force in today's program.
We can absolutely do that. In other news, I believe the Gender Equality Advisory Committee makeup has been determined.
Yes, that's right. I believe that the letters were sent out late last week. That's the Gender Equality Advisory Committee that has been set up by Minister Sean Lean and also Minister Gabrielle Williams, and will be co-chaired by Kate Theophanous, MP, and also Juliana Addison. So really looking forward to myself being part of that committee, but also working alongside 15 other women from the local government sector in particular.
Excellent. Good to hear. I look forward to hearing more about that as well. Kathryn, I do note that that research project that you're a key part of with two eminent universities is getting quite a lot of media coverage in terms of what's emerging from that research.
Yes, there's been a lot of national coverage on the early results of the initial survey that research project covers. So as our viewers might recall, the VLGA has partnered with Melbourne University and also La Trobe University to complete an Australian research linkage grant project over the course of 4 years, looking particularly at women's political trajectories and looking at local government, and in particular the Victorian local government elections that have recently taken place. So the survey, initial survey, surveyed all candidates, men and women, in the Victorian recent election. And from those results, which were reported on in local news media a couple of weeks ago, there were significant findings out of sort of 728 candidates that indicated 23% of women compared to 3% of men experienced very negative behaviours during that campaigning process. And the research and the initial findings go on into a little bit more detail. But what is of particular note is that this local research project, Victorian research project, is getting picked up by national media. I believe it was reported by the Sydney Morning Herald over the weekend, and also in some other national media. So, and I'm not surprised. I know that when Andrea and Leah and I have spoken about this, there are significant opportunities for the findings of the research to be applied across all states, but also across all political jurisdictions. So really pleased that the project in its first year is getting so much traction.
Indeed, it's terrific, and you know, it'll be worth its weight in gold if we can effect some change and really understand how to bring about some of that change once that's all run its course. A bit of news from around the sector. Out at Wyndham, one of the directors there has a very, very significant appointment to announce at the moment.
Very exciting news for, well, the local government sector, but for Director Kate Roffey, who is out at Wyndham, as you say. Kate has been appointed as the first woman president of in the Melbourne Football Club's history. So that's an absolute terrific announcement, and Kate must be very pleased with that. But of course, Kate is well known for her role in the sporting sector and various committees. We did have Kate on a panel that we ran a couple of years ago with Bridie O'Donnell, who was CEO of the Office for Sport, and looking at particularly how to encourage more women into sport, and in particular at the governance level. So this is a terrific appointment, and a great you know, and it recognises women's contribution and the contribution that they could make and can make and do make at a governance level with our sporting clubs.
Look, I just think it's fantastic news for Kate and for everyone, really. So, Kate, I just wonder whether she's going to keep all of those things she's doing going. So she's on ABC News Breakfast fairly regularly. I don't know whether that'll continue. She was instrumental in bringing that football, as in the roundball code, team to the west of Melbourne, and part of that, I don't know when she sleeps, to be honest.
I know, she's incredibly busy. It's very impressive.
Indeed. Congratulations, Kate Roffey. Now, coming up in terms of VLGA events, you've got quite a bit on. I'm sure you'd like to share some of that with our viewers and listeners before you go.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Chris. We of course have some more global executive panel discussions coming up with our partner LGIU. Very pleased to be looking at that mid-year. But before that, we've got some other events coming up. We're relaunching our Leading the Agenda series, which for those viewers who may have participated in the past are our almost equivalent to a VLGA Connect format, a panel discussion, but held face-to-face with our partners, picture partners. And we're looking at running the first leading the agenda on risk and audit committees. What you were too afraid to ask is the topic for that. So stay tuned for that. We've got a number of other events coming up. We have the VLGA's Local Government Governance Advisory Network coming up this week, where of course we have governance officers and also councillors come together to discuss advocacy priorities for the VLGA, and also in particular look at the implementation phases of the Local Government Act. We have a workshop coming up looking at local women leading change 6 months on, an opportunity for all women, whether they are elected or not, to come together to reflect on their experiences throughout the campaign and election and post-election process. And we're also going to be running some very specific training for local government on the Gender Equality Act. So there's some idiosyncrasies for the local government sector that aren't quite the same as the other state bodies that the Gender Equality Act, I guess, encompasses. And you might recall we had Dr. Nikki Vincent, the Gender Equality Commissioner, on our program a couple of weeks ago, and it's worth catching up on that if our viewers haven't already done that. But there are some significant challenges, I think, for the local government sector. So we'll be running some workshops to really focus in on those. And hopefully, Chris, as we were talking about just before we hit record today, we'll also have some VLGA Connect live panel discussions coming up. I believe that there are some amazing collaborations happening out there in the local government sector in Victoria, where councils are coming together to solve issues that affect all of, the same issue that affects all of their municipalities. And it would be great to share some of those learnings and have a discussion about that.
Great idea. Yes, I feel like I'm hearing about these different alliances all the time, which is just fabulous for the sector and ultimately for communities. Not sure if you mentioned you've also got a workshop, an online workshop coming up that helps people in councils bring in those gambling harm minimisation strategies into their public health and wellbeing plans, which I think is a terrific thing to be doing as well.
So invitation went out to all Victorian councillors late last week, and in fact I've received a number of positive replies from councillors very interested in the program. As our viewers may know, we do receive some funding from the Victorian Responsible Gambling Foundation, and we work with councils and communities to address or reduce harm from gambling, particularly through looking and reviewing at licensing applications that come through. We're really keen to, I guess, raise the thinking a little bit in the sector and have a look at the governance structures that are in place in which we can incorporate some of these principles. So councils, as we know, are looking at their community health and wellbeing plans at this very moment. So that would be the place if a council and their community wanted them to look at strategies for reducing harm from gambling, that you'd pick those up. So this workshop looks at that, and we have Dr. Susan Rennie and the VLGA's Chief of Staff, Stephen Cooper, moderating that workshop, which is coming up on...
It might be around the 21st of April, 22nd of April.
It's perhaps the 22nd of April. So, and of course, the day prior to that, on the 21st of April, we have the Minister for Gambling, Melissa Horne, addressing our local government working group on gambling.
All right, so it's a busy time ahead with lots happening. Thank you, Kathryn. Good to catch up, and I look forward to seeing you again in the newsroom next week.
Catch up then, Chris. Thank you.
Kathryn Arndt, the CEO of the VLGA, with us on VLGA Connect.